Hello and welcome to another video on ChatGPT prompt engineering for developers. So in this section and in this video, I'm going to make a quick recap of the last video and the last topic that I learned so far, which is the course detail, the introduction, the guidelines, as well as the iterative process, and the most common use case from this slide: summarizing, inferring, transforming, as well as expanding, and ultimately look at the chatbot. So this course will give us the in this course the course detail. It says, well, you're gonna see how LLMs work and how to build LLMs, and how powerful it is because it allows you to build applications, something that were cost prohibitive, highly technical, or nearly impossible or impossible before now. So here the first thing is see how an LLM works, getting started, and some principles of writing good effective prompt, and then understand how to use LLMs to expand the capability of your applications, such as summarizing or inferring, transforming, and expanding. Okay, so summarizing is user review for brevity, or transforming for check spell or grammar corrections, inferring, sentiment classification, topic extractions, and expanding. So, for example, automatically generates emails or essays, and also learn the principle along the way and the systematic way of doing that, and lastly build a chatbot from scratch. So this is the TLB here, this course. So in the introduction, so Andrew mentioned that there's a lot of articles out there on the internet, like 30 prompts that everybody has to know, but these are exclusively or works very well for the ChatGPT web interface, where a lot of people often to do one-off tasks. But when it comes to developers, the power of this is that it allows to build applications using LLM's APIs. So in the development of the LLMs, where now Andrew and G have this deep learning.ai company, as well as Create is a sister company called he created a sister company called Deep let me see if I can AI Fund.ai. That's right, is this. So he built this company, so he built this sister company. Together, let's build a great company that moves humanity forward. Okay, so artificial intelligence is the new electricity, and just like electricity revolutionizes the world, AI will now do the same. So he created this human capital, health and wellness, next generation enterprise, and ML ops, machine learning operations, right? So I like this. Supporting entrepreneurs like you, AI Fund is a venture studio that works with entrepreneurs to build company rapidly and increase the odds of success. We aspire to play the role of a minor co-founder. health, healthier and longer life physically and mentally, from idea to reality fast. What our founder says. So they got this portfolio on health and wellness. Amore Newos in Wobot Health. Has created relational technology that underpin a new generation of digital therapeutic and tools for mental health. The company property relationship agent Wobot is capable of quickly forming a bond with users and delivering human-like therapeutic encounters. CEO, president, and co-founder. So okay, this is the sister company that Andrew and G made, and I saw full for from OpenAI. So with that, right? Then, in the development of the large language models, there are broadly two types. So we have base LLMs that predict what is the next likely word, and great because this uh, instruction or these models, okay. For example, when you prompt things like what is the capital of United States or France, okay, uh, the model will likely to complete with what is the largest French population, what is the largest French city, what is the French largest city, so what is the currency of France. So because the articles on the internet that where this model was trained are highly likely to have this quiz question of the country of France. So, but what is when you prompt things like once upon a time there was a unicorn, uh, the model will likely to complete that live in a magical forest with all her unicorn friends. But when it comes to give instructions, that's why we have is the instruction tune LLM, which this start with a base LLM that trains based on a huge amount of data, but a huge amount of data, and then it trained to tune in with inputs and outputs that attempts to follow instructions using refined techniques like reinforced learning with human feedback. And this is to make the model much more useful, and people behind the scenes make the model to be more honest, harmless, and helpful. So it is less likely to have problematic or toxic output. So you can think of this as a small person that doesn't know the details. So when you tell them, hey, tell me more about Faraday, right? Or tell me more about uh, Alan Turing. So it's important to provide context to the model. Okay, so what you want to know about it, about his personal life, his scientific roles, his role in history, or something else, as well as the tonality. So give me this in a professional journalist or in a more casual. So with that introduction, then I look at the guidelines, okay, especially how to write effective prompts. Two principles: write clear and specific instructions with set of tactics like use a limiter to clear defined inputs. Delimiters like triple quotes, triple backticks, Uh, yeah, delimiters like triple quote, triple backticks, um, anchor tags, triple dash, and so on. As for structured data, let's say JSON or HTML, CSV, as well as check whether the condition has been satisfied to do the task. And few shotting. For example, give the model a couple examples to do the task and then let the model to perform the task. And the second principle is give the model time to think. Because this behaves somewhat similar to a human when you tell them to solve a complex math problem without giving proper time, so they will likely to give it wrong. So when you get this incorrect conclusion, so try to reframe that and use that with a series of steps, which is one tactics. Okay, provide a couple of steps to do the task, or instruct the model to figuring out the solution first, and then uh, yeah, and then sorry, and then so instruct the model to figure out the solution first before rushing to a conclusion. So, for example, when you have a math problem, student solution, so tell the model, hey, first give me the answer from this math problem, and then compare your results with the student solutions and ultimately give me your answer. Okay, if that is you have the same answer or not. So that's great, because then I look at how to do that iteratively. Okay, following is also the machine learning development, where they have an idea and then they implement that with data or code, and then they get the experimental results. Okay, and do the error analysis to understand why they don't get the expected output, and repeat. When it comes to the prompt development or this prompt iterative development, well, you have an idea, then you write the prompt, okay? You analyze why you don't get the desired output, you refine the prompt as well as the idea, and repeat, right? So this is something that Andrew mentioned about this iterative process. Okay, uh, and this works well for simple application that the only handle is one test sample. But for more mature application, when they need to have dozens of examples, because at the end of the day, that's the reason why we are looking at this, and the reason why we build application is that it can be scalable. Okay, is that this kind of approach works well for early prompt development. Okay, but when it comes to more mature application, where you need to analyze dozens of examples, or perhaps much more, a great way to do that is to measure is the performance of the prompt on average and worst case scenario. So from there you started to get some metrics. So then I look at the most common use case, such as summarizing, right? Where summarizing is something important, especially grade, because right now we don't have the time to read whatever we want. as we wish. But with summarizing, we can do that. So, for example, when we pass a text and we instruct the model to summarize or extract some context. So, one particular use case, like for example, let's say you have a lawyer that has to read a lot of documents, right? So, or and folders. So, what you can do is to instruct the model to make a summary from the entire folder, okay, and provide this summarized version, indicating the number of character or sentence to do that. And optionally provide a link to the lawyer, so where it can now so where it can optionally click on that to dig in if they wish. The other is inferring. Okay, so you can think of this set of tasks as you give a text input to the. So when you think to all of these tasks, okay, you can think of this as in which the model takes a text input and performs some sort of analysis, summarizing, inferring, expanding, transforming. Okay, in this case, inferring. Okay, understanding the sentiment of a text, extracting name, extracting labels. So in the traditional machine learning development, okay, so if you want, for example, a model that understands the sentiment of a text, you will have is to collect the data labels, train the model, and then figuring out where to deploy that model on the internet. So if you want to do another task, like say extracting name, you have to train and deploy a separate model. But with this LLM, one of the beauty of and the power of this is that by writing prompts, we can get results quickly, speed up, and also improving the speed of applications development, which is one, and the other is the simplicity provided at least for the OpenAI, right? The simplicity with this, because now you have, in that case with OpenAI, you have one model, one API to do many tasks. Okay, so this is the entire pipeline of how you can interact with. So then I look prompts, keyword, or topics that you can use. For example, like sentiment, identify the sentiment of a text, the list of emotion on a text, the information extraction. Okay, such as, let's say I would like to know if the company name or the product name. Okay, so information extraction, doing multiple tasks at once, well, and inferring topics from a text input. So you can, for example, count the number of topics and list them, right? The other is transforming. So LLMs are great when it comes to transform. It is inputs into another format. So language translation from English to Spanish, or language translation from English to Spanish, or spell check and grammar corrections, all right? As well as transform from one format to another. Let's say CSV to JSON or JSON to HTML, that kind of thing. So with that, then I look at the most common prompts, whether it's keyword or word that you can use. So for example, language identification, translation, the tonality that you want, for example, a translation, whether it's formal or informal. Formal if you want to address to a senior or in a professional manager, in a professional manner, uh, as well as the uh, transform it is input or format conversion, okay, and then spell check and grammar correction. So ultimately I look at the expanding, okay, where now with expanding, okay, where now with expanding here, this is a task where now the model take a short text input, whether it's a set of instructions or a list of topics, and generate a longer text input such as email or essay. So in that case, I build is an automated customer service email signed by AI agent, okay, which was very interesting to do, by the way. And ultimately the chatbot. This is more like to understand in this section how the chat completion, or how the OpenAI chat completion features works. The component of the OpenAI chat completion in a more detail. Because with this chatbot, we can see, yeah, this is exciting to build. This is exciting to see how you can build an LLM. Okay, how you can, yeah, one of the exciting things about LLM is that you can use it to build a custom chatbot with only a modest amount of effort. Okay, yeah, building a custom chatbot with a only modest amount of question, or with only a modest amount of effort might be good. Okay, so ChatGPT, the web interface, is a way for you to have conversational interface. Okay, or a conversation with the LLM. Exactly. So the ChatGPT web interface is a way of how you can, is a way for you to have a conversational interface, or a conversational interface, or a conversation with a large language model. But one of the cool things is that you can build your own custom chatbot. Okay, so far what we have done is to single task. Okay, single task, no interactivity at all. Okay, few interactivity with, yeah, with no interactivity, with no continuous interactivity. Okay, for example, summarizing, or added, or without a continuous flow of interactivity, right? So for example, with summarizing or inferring or translation and expanding, these are tasks that allow you to build uh, software, or that allows you to build this particular task to solve this issue. But when it comes to a chatbot, this rely now in an interactivity with the user. Okay, a more engaging interactivity with the user, which is great, by the way, which is great, which is totally great. Yeah, which is totally great. So this chatbot allows us to do, or in this case, the one of the exciting features of this large LLM is that allow you to build chatbots, okay, with only a modest amount of effort. So ChatGPT, the web interface, is a way for you to have conversational interface, a conversation via LLM. But one of the cool things is that you can build your own custom chatbot. So to maybe play a role of an AI customer service agent. Another thing that I look in the expanding is the temperature, is the degree at which the model, is the degree at which the variety of the model responds. So 0 is that if you're building a system that with reliability and predictability in mind, or if you more a creative output, for example, you want a brainstorm partner, well, you can set the temperature to from 0.3 to 0.7. Okay. So yeah, so this is the chatbot. Yeah. So with chatbot we have is this. All right. So with chatbot we have is this. Mhm. So okay, this is one of the great things of this large language model is that allows you to build your own custom chatbots, uh, similar to the ChatGPT web interface, where you have a conversational interface. So maybe to play a role in AI customer service agent, an AI customer service agent, or an AI order taker for a restaurant, which is something that we're going to build here in this chatbot section. Okay, so ISA full for is going to describe the components of OpenAI chat completion features, feature in more detail, so you can build a chatbot for yourself. So we're going to jump here. Okay.
One of the exciting things about a large language model is you could use it to build a custom chatbot with only a modest amount of effort. ChatGPT, the web interface, is a way for you to have a conversational interface, a conversation via a large language model. But one of the cool things is you can also use a large language model to build your custom chatbot to maybe play the role of an AI customer service agent or an AI order taker for a restaurant. And in this video, you learn how to do that for yourself.
I'm going to describe the components of the OpenAI chat completions format in more detail, and then you're going to build a chatbot yourself. So let's get into it. So first, we'll set up the OpenAI Python package as usual.
Yeah, first we'll start up with Python package as usual. Okay. And here you're indicating is which model you want to use. Questions. Can we indicate that we want is the ChatGPT for this? Interesting. We can use the GPT-4. Great. So open AI here, no, open AI docs. That's right, with the GPT. That stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. And this is one of architecture of this. So the input to GPT are also referred to as prompt. Exactly. Designing a prompt is essentially how you program a GPT model, usually by providing instruction or some example how to successfully complete a task. So you can use this GPT-4, GPT 3.5. Interesting with chat completion. For example, if we say something like this, and we reload this, so there is a difference of how they reply. There is a very different on how they reply here. Interesting. So older models, Text DaVinci 003, Text DaVinci 002, DaVinci, Courier, Babagash, Ada. You can experiment with GPT in the playground. If you're not sure which model to use, then use a GPT-4 or GPT 3.5 Turbo. That's right. But it's like this. And this is from Python. Or not necessary. So import the OpenAI and then you say chat completion.create a interaction with the message here. So the role system content, you're a helpful assistant.
So chat models like ChatGPT are actually trained to take a series of messages as input and return a model-generated message as output. And so although
play the role of an AI customer service agent or an AI order taker for a restaurant, in this video, you learn how to do that for yourself.
I'm going to describe the components of the OpenAI chat completions format in more detail, and then you're going to build a chatbot yourself. So let's get into it. So first, we'll set up the OpenAI Python package as usual. So chat models like ChatGPT are actually trained to take a series of messages as input and return a model. ChatGPT.
So chat models like GPT. So chat models like interesting. So chat models like Chat GPT, but they are oriented. So this is the entire model GPT, but this is for a particular feature. For chat. So chat models like Chat GPT are actually trained
to take a series of
are actually trained to take a series of messages as input
and return a model-generated message
and return a model-generated message as output. Okay, so chat model like ChatGPT are actually trained to take a series of message as input, okay, and return a model. Exactly, and return a model generated message as output. This is something critical and crucial to understand for the chat model completion. So it takes a series of message as input and return a model generated message as output. Okay, so takes a series of message as input and return a model-generated message. And return a model-generated message as output.
Output. And so although the chat format is designed to make multi-turn conversations like this easy, we've kind of seen through the previous videos that it's also just as useful for single-turn tasks without any conversation. And so next we're going to define two helper functions. So
Exactly. It's also helpful for one single task. It's also just as it's also just as useful for a single task without any conversation. Yeah. This is also useful for one single task or for single turn. Okay, for single turn task without any conversation.
for single-turn tasks without any conversation. And so next we're going to define two helper functions. So this is the one that we've been using throughout all the videos, and it's the get completion function. But if you kind of look at it, we give a prompt, but then inside the function, what we're actually doing is putting this prompt into what looks like some kind of user message.
It's putting this prompt. Okay. Which is this get completion. It's putting the prompt, and then you assign a list of message. In this case, you assign is this message as input. Okay, where the model takes that, so it takes a series of message, as input, and returns a model generated message output. Okie dokie. Okay.
And this is because the ChatGPT model is a chat model.
And the response here. Permission error. Permission error.
Which means it's trained to take a series of messages as input and then return a model-generated message as output. So the user message is the input and then the assistant message is the output. So in this video, we're going to actually use a different helper function, and instead of the get completion function, but if you kind of look at it, we give a prompt, but then inside the function, what we're actually doing is putting this prompt into what looks like some kind of user message. And this is because the ChatGPT model is a chat model, which means it's trained to take a series of messages as input and then return a model-generated message as output. So the user message is the input and then the assistant message is the output. So in this video, we're going to actually use a different helper function, And instead of kind of putting a single prompt as input and getting a single completion, we're going to pass in a list of messages. And these messages can be kind of from a variety of different roles. So I'll describe those. So here's an example of a list of messages. And so the first message is a system message, which kind of gives an overall instruction. And then after this message, we have turns between the user and the assistant. And this will kind of continue to go on. And if you've ever used ChatGPT, the web interface, then your messages are the user messages, and then ChatGPT's messages are the assistant messages. So the system message helps to kind of set the behavior and persona of the assistant, and it acts as kind of a high-level instruction for the conversation. So you can kind of think of it as whispering in the assistant's ear and kind of guiding its responses without the user being aware.
In this example, the assistant set the behavior of assistant is kind of whispering in their ears.
Aware of the system message. Kind of a high level, and then ChatGPT, the user, which kind of gives an overall instruction. And then after this message, we have turns between the user and the assistant. And this will kind of continue to go on. And if you've ever used turns at single completion, we'll go from a variety of different roles. So I'll describe those. So here's an example of a list of messages. And so the first message is a system message, which kind of gives an overall instruction.
So this is to provide context. So the first message is to instruct the model and give overall instructions.
So the first message is a system message, which kind of gives an overall instruction.
So the first message is the system model. So the first message is the system model.
And then after
where you give overall instructions.
This message, we have a system message, which kind of gives an overall instruction. And then after this message, we have turns between the user and the assistant. Overall instruction. And then after this message, we have turns.
And then after this message, we have turns between. And after this message, we have turns between the user. So we have turns between the user
and the assistant.
And the assistant. And the assistant. And the assistant.
And this will kind of continue to go on. And we have turns between the user and the assistant. And this will kind of continue to.
And this will kind of continue
to go on.
And this will kind of continue and go on.
And if you've ever used ChatGPT, the web interface, then your messages are the user messages, and then ChatGPT's messages are the assistant messages. So this.
So if you have used the ChatGPT web interface,
are the user messages, and then ChatGPT, the web interface, then your messages are the user messages.
Exactly. So your message are the user message, and the
And then
response
ChatGPT's messages.
and ChatGPT messages are the assistant. Roles.
The assistant messages. So the system message helps to kind of set the behavior and persona
So the system message kind of set the behavior of the assistant, the behavior of the assistant,
of the assistant, and it acts as kind of a high-level instruction for
and it acts as a kind of high level instruction.
the conversation.
For the conversation.
So you can kind of think of it as whispering in the assistant's ear.
As you can kind of think of whispering, so you can kind of think whispering at the system ear, so you can kind of think whispering at the system ear, system of the assistant with WS, assistant's ears, and kind of guiding his response, and kind of guiding it is response, and kind of guiding it is response.
And kind of guiding its responses without the user being aware of this.
Without the user being aware of the system. Without the user being aware of the system.
System message. So
Of the system message.
as the user, if you've ever used ChatGPT,
So that'll be all for this video. Take care. Bye bye.